hey, mate, you're going straight into protection. You're all over the news. Basically, treat me like a grub. And they're like, oh, you're going to have all these charges coming. Like some of the worst allegations ever. The guards kept trying to get me to sell up with him. His name is Christopher Holland. He was in there for the manslaughter of his own 6-month-old child. He'd done time before already for rape. They moved me into the unit next door, put me in a cell with him. I remember being so fucking scared of this guy because he'd be out there in the yard, doing these ones. He had an orange Colgate toothbrush with razor blades in it. They're not going to hesitate to rape you, stab you, fucking knock that fucking screaming and shit off at night. This guy's going to fucking kill me. And then one night, he just started going to town on me every night. You're never getting out of here. And I kept trying to kill myself.
3, 2, 1. We're back. Part 2 of Shane Cuthbert and his absolutely mind-blowing story. We're going to get straight into it, guys. Straight into the part 2. But make sure to subscribe, become a member, drop, like, share, drop supers. Check out the merch in the community posts, YouTuber shirts. You can go now on the back. Support the channel, and Shane's links are all in the description as well, guys. So thanks for watching, and let's get straight into this. This comes with a content warning. There are some disturbing, not visuals, but it will paint a picture in your head. The stuff that he says is like highly disturbing. So yeah, you might want to if you can't handle it, then yeah, there's a warning. Oh yeah. All right, watch this.
All right, so you had some time in jail.
Yeah.
And that where was that at?
So I first got locked up in 2015. I did 2 months remand at Silverwater first. Went into MRRC.
Yeah.
I then went to, I think, the new Cessnock.
Yeah.
Basically, I probably would have been there for a month or so. I think I did a night in Park Lee and a night in Amber Laurel, just as they were transferring me around for court. I had a couple of charges there, like against a neighbour, threatening the neighbour. Went to court, got off. So I did 2 months. Didn't really do a lot of jail down there in New South Wales.
Yeah.
Then the next year, 2016, I got arrested for a string of stuff up here in Queensland. Like I was out of control. Like I had, I had a drink driving, right, and I was already on bail, and I'd had an all-nighter on the piss, and I thought, fuck, I'm going to go to bed. It's about 6 o'clock in the morning, and I've got a report from 7 till 7, and I go, fuck, I'm going to go to bed. I'm not going to wake up. I'm going to breach my bail. So what I'll do is I'll drink drive to the police station. I go there, smashed as. I'm like 15 minutes early. The cop at the counter's like, look, don't worry about it. I'm just going to fudge it up. In Queensland, it's different to New South Wales. In New South Wales, when you're on bail, you get that bail receipt and it comes from the computer. Like, it's legit. You can't fudge it. In Queensland, it's like a handwritten fucking book that the cops fill out. Like, it's stupid. So he just goes, oh, yeah, 7 a.m., you're good to go. Anyway, it's 1:45. I left the police station. I'm driving home. I see the fucking cops up ahead. I don't know if they're at my house or the neighbour's house, something like that. I just saw the fucking cops and I was like, oh, fuck, I'm fucked here. I'm going to go back to jail. I'm fucked. So I pulled over. The cops have looked at me like, what's this guy doing? And then I just hit the car, put it in reverse. So then I'm reversing down the fucking street and they're like, the fuck is this guy doing? Like, he's reversed. So then they get in the car naturally and just start fucking following me.
Yeah.
Follow me down. They're trying to pull me over, light me up. I go down this cul-de-sac down behind my house. And, they got the road blocked and they're thinking, oh, you can't go anywhere. I pull over, lock the car. I went and jumped a fence. We backed onto this industrial area, so I jumped a fence. That's where I got a trespassing from. Jumped over into my backyard, had a shower, went to bed like nothing happened. All of a sudden, half an hour later, doors getting kicked in. They're saying you drink driving, evade police, whole bunch of stuff. And I was like, No, it wasn't me. Like, you can check. I was reporting at the police station at 7 a.m. They're like, what? So they call the station and they talk to this cop that signed me off at 7. And they're like, we got this guy drink driving down the road at 7. He's saying he was there reporting. And the cop's like, oh, yeah, but he was actually here a little bit earlier and I like fudged it up. And I was like, I thought I had him, man. I thought, I'm going to like take this
He's
to
not going to
court.
tell
Like,
on
because he had
himself.
to explain.
Yeah.
He had to explain that he changed the records and shit. But at the same time, so I had 11 charges: resist arrest, evade police, obstruct police, breach of bail, trespassing. I had a explosive charge for having a shotgun shell in the car, drink driving, all of that stuff, and I ended up in Rockhampton prison. Now I'm in there for 2 weeks, and I never saw it because I was in prison. But the prison guards were like, "Hey, mate, you're going straight into protection. You're all over the news." And I was like, "Oh, what's it about?" Anyway, it wasn't good because they were basically, treating me like a grub. And they're like, "Oh, you're going to have all these charges coming, like you're never getting out of here." And I'm thinking, the fuck is all of this? Anyway, my ex-wife, she went on TV, made like some of the worst allegations ever, like rape, torture, deprivation of liberty. I was Australia's most evil husband. So here I was, really in prison for fuck all charges, but I was a grub, so as far as anyone else was concerned. So I'm in there, I'm in protection. Man, I lasted 4 days. The only reason I think I lasted 4 days is I kept trying to kill myself and I had a broken leg. I'm on crutches. The guys in the unit were hitting me up for my pain meds, which I wasn't getting anyway. They weren't giving them to me.
Yeah.
And I think that's the only reason why I lasted 4 days, because I was like, look, we're going to jump on this guy's head, stand over him, whatever. But, if we can get some meadow out of him, we'll let him go. So there I was, 4 days in. They kept hitting me up like, hey, get some medication, things like that. And I was like, oh, look, I can't. They're not giving me anything. And then one day, one of the screws just goes, calls me up to the fishbowl and he goes, Cuthbert, yep. I go over there on my crutches. He goes, yeah, they want you down in the laundry. And I go, oh, okay. All right. No worries. I hadn't done a lot of jail. I mean, apart from that 2 months down in Sydney at that time, I was green as, I was fresh. I didn't know how the prisons worked. So I went to the laundry. And the odd thing was, I remember going into the laundry and no one was in there. Like, it was empty. And I was like, this fucking guard told me to go into the laundry. Like, what the hell? And anyway, I stopped, turned around. Then as I'm going to turn around to leave, man, like 4 or 5 guys just come in, knocked me on the ground, jumped all over my head.
Inmates?
What's that?
Inmates or,
yeah. That's the other thing that was odd, is that inmates did that, but obviously, like, the guards were in on it. The guards were setting me up because they, told me to go down there. And they put me in a wheelchair because I couldn't use crutches anymore, because I had my leg rebroken, I had my arm fractured, I had my fingers fractured, lost bits of my teeth and stuff like that. So then at that point, they said, we can't keep this guy safe in this prison, right? He's high profile, he's on the news. We're going to have to tip him to another jail. So I spent probably about 2 months in solitary confinement before they put me on a plane and they took me up to Townsville. And then similar stuff in Townsville. I went straight in.
Sorry. Do they do planes
in Queensland? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Yeah. Mate, it's like a private jet. It's not very big. It's probably got like 20 seats, if that.
And was there other people
because, on there? I've been on a couple of them now, and they've got screws. They've always got detectives and stuff on them as well, because they're actually owned by Queensland Police. And then I don't know how it works. Corrective Services must buy a ticket for you or something like that. It's because up here, man, I'm up here in the sticks up in North Queensland, and our prisons up here are a good 4 or 5 hours between each other. So,
yeah.
like, that's a long way to drive, and it's a long way to have, inmates sitting in the back of a truck. So I got flown from Rockhampton to Townsville prison, and that's about a good 4 or 5 hour drive. And actually, funny thing about that is when we pulled up in Townsville, I remember coming down the steps of the plane. I'm on crutches, and there's all this media there, and I'm like, oh fuck, all this media's here for me. I looked over, and we're actually parked next to Scott Morrison's jet, and he was the Prime Minister at the time. He's getting out of his jet at the same time, and there's like Australian Secret Service all hanging around. There's all the media, and it was really weird because like he was this like the Prime Minister, and then he was this criminal in the prison greens getting off the plane. Anyway, it was a spin out, so I didn't know what was going on, but they took me to Townsville prison, straight into protection. I had no dramas there for a couple of weeks, but there was this guy, real bad guy. Man, his name is Christopher Holland. He was in there for the manslaughter of his own 6-month-old child. He'd done time before already for rape. So, bad history, should never have been celled up with him. And the guards kept trying to get me to cell up with him. And I said, look, I'm not going in that fucking cell. Like, I knew if I went in that cell, like I knew what was going on. I knew that the guards wanted me got. And I know that this guy was going to get me because he'd be out there in the yard, doing these ones, over the fence. And I'm thinking, fuck, man, this guy's going to fucking kill me. So the first time the guards tried to move me, I ended up going to solitary confinement for a month because they were trying to teach me a lesson like, oh, you do as you're told. If you're not going to do it, you're going to go to the DU. Now, I didn't mind that because I was like, oh, as long as I was in there looking at a brick wall, I wasn't getting killed. I wasn't out in the yard getting preyed upon. So I didn't mind. And then I go back to the cells. What's funny is this same screw was on again. Every time she was on, she was trying to put me in that cell. And I was like, I fucking know what's going on here. So one of my mates then at that time, he's sort of going, look, man, you're going to have to threaten to slash up, and then they'll take you to medical. And I was like, all right, sweet. So I said, oh, look, I'll slash up. I'm not moving. Boom, call the code, come and grab me, basically dragged me to medical. Then what they did is they took my crutches, so I couldn't walk, obviously. Stripped my clothes. They had me up in medical in, the gown, the dress. I'm there by myself. I didn't have any toilet access. I had to piss and shit in a cardboard box. And then they'd come and take the fucking cardboard box away. And I remember one day they were like, oh, yeah, Cuthbert, you want to use the toilet? And I was like, yeah. And they're like, oh, we're going to give you toilet access now. It was about a week in. Anyway, all these guards start piling into the fishbowl. There's probably about 10 of them. And they're all just like, oh, yeah, watch this. And so I get up and I got no crutches. And so I had to hop on one leg to the toilet. And they're all just pissing themselves laughing, pointing at me, like, oh, look at this fucking grub. He's hopping like a kangaroo. They're calling me Skippy, stuff like that. And then I remember I was there for a couple of weeks. I got a phone call to my mum, told her what was happening. She called the jail, and then one of the supervisors come down straight away and was like, oh, look, he doesn't need to be there. He was like, look, what's the go? I said, look, I keep want to put me in a cell with this guy. I'm not going in a fucking cell with him. He's like, all right, it's all good. I'll just send you back where you were before. Happy with that? And I said, yeah, no worries. So then I'm happy, living life for a couple of weeks. Same screws on again. Yep, guess where you're going today? And then I'm like, fuck, what else can I fucking do to stop going in a cell with this guy? Big no-no. Got on the phone, got onto prison intel, and everyone then at that point's looking at me like, oh, this guy's on the fucking phone to prison intel. They dragged me in a room. I'm like, look, I don't want to go in there with this guy. I'm happy. And anyway, they agreed. They're like, yeah, sweet. Why would you need to go in a cell with that guy? It's all good. Then I'm good for another couple of weeks. Then again, same screw on again. Yeah, Cuthbert, guess where you're going? And at that point, I was like, fuck, I've exhausted every fucking option I could think of to try not to sell up with this guy. They moved me into the unit next door, put me in a cell with him. And, mate, he just started going to town on me every night. I remember a couple of boys one morning out in the yard after we were all there at Unlock. Like, I'm covered in bruises and shit, and the guys can hear me getting bashed up every night. And one of the guys is out in the yard, and he goes, man, you got to fucking knock that fucking screaming and shit off at night. And I was like, oh, what? And he's like, yeah, we're all trying to sleep. Like, you know, if you don't knock it off, we'll jump on your head. And I was like, this fucking guy's fucking bashing me up and shit. They're like, yeah, it's fucking your problem. You sort it out. And I was like, I remember being so fucking scared of this guy. You know, the crazy thing is he's not a big guy. Like, I'm bigger than him. I don't know if you can relate being in prison, but it's not always the big guys that you need to be worried about. It's the guys that you know are crazy. You know, the guys that you know, they're not going to hesitate to rape you, stab you. Like, those guys are crazy. And this guy was like that. You know, like, he had a tattoo on the side of his neck, and it was him choking his ex-missus, you know, that he raped and all that stuff. And he's got the clown diamonds on his eyes now. Like, just, it fucking looks mean, man. And you know, as I said, he was there for the manslaughter of his own baby. And, you know, they found it and it's got like 70 fractures, something like that, like when it died. Like, they were just, I don't know what, picking up this baby, this poor kid, smacking him into the wall. Like, this is a bad guy. And then I just felt so helpless. And, you know, he's taking all my buy-ups and stuff like that. And I was like, I didn't care. I was like, man, you can have it. I don't care. Just stop fucking bashing me up. But anyway, he was always going, look, no, I'm toughening you up. I'm toughening you up because you're a little fucking bitch, you know, like, got to fucking toughen up. So that's why he was like saying, he was bashing me up every day, basically trying to make me tough. I'm trying to make you tough, trying to make you tough. And I was like, man, I remember he was Indigenous. He'd always watch the Indigenous TV every night. And I wasn't allowed to fall asleep until he did. Man, I remember I'd be like falling asleep and he'd be up on the top bunk and he'd be like, are you fucking awake? And if I wasn't awake, he'd get down. He'd just start laying into me. He was like, no, you fucking go to sleep when I tell you to go to sleep. And I was like, oh, fuck. And then one night, I was sleeping facing the concrete wall. So I had my back out because I thought, you know, if I've got my back out, he's not going to, you know, get my face and stuff like that. Like, I'm sort of protected. And then, man, this guy had this, he had an orange Colgate toothbrush with razor blades in it. And, man, he's just starting to fucking rape me with this fucking thing, man. And I was like, man, I was screaming out probably, you know, like a little girl. You know, you know what? So that happened that night. And I remember just feeling so helpless that I didn't even tell anyone. Like, and at that point, I'd realised that, like, the screws weren't on my side. So I thought, look, I can't just go up to the fishbowl and fucking say, hey, I've fucking got to get out. They don't care.
Yeah.
And one day we're sitting in the unit and it's buy-up day and he's thinking, fuck yeah, I'm getting, you know, all the chocky bars and cans of Coke and shit like that. And we're sitting on, we used to call it a bus stop because the stainless steel seats they had just looked like a fucking bus stop, but there was no bus coming. We're sitting there and the fishbowl, screws call me up. Yeah, Cuthbert, come to the fishbowl. I get up there. They go, look, mate, you got to go to hospital. They want to fucking do an x-ray on your leg, see if you can get your cast off, stuff like that. I'm like, oh, yeah, no worries, sweet as. Go back over to the seats and he's like, what's that about? And I'm like, oh, I just got to go to the hospital. He's like, fuck off, you're not. It's fucking buy-up day, mate. You're not fucking going anywhere until you get, you know, until I get fucking buy-up. And I was like, oh, man, you can have my buy-up. I don't care. I'm like, you know, but they're telling me I've got to go to hospital. And he's like, oh, well, you fucking go back there and you tell them you're not going. And I'm like, oh, fuck, all right. So I go back to the fishbowl. Guard's like, yeah, what do you want? And I'm like, yeah, no, so I can't go to hospital. And they're like, start laughing at me like, what are you talking about, Cuthbert? We've been through this before. This is jail. Like, we tell you what to do. You don't tell us what to do. You're not going to hospital. Hospital's called up. They want you in there. You're going. That's it. And I'm like, oh, okay. And then I walk back. I go see old mate. And he goes, all right, all good. And I was like, well, they just said, fucking, I got to go. Mate, he just started fucking bashing me up right then and there in the middle of fucking everyone, the middle of the yard, middle of the fucking unit. At this point, the screw's obviously going, something's fucking going on here. So they let it go on for a bit. He's jumping on my head, and then, eventually they come in and they grab me. Anyway, I remember they're going, oh, do you want to talk about it? And I was like, no. Like, I've got nothing to say. And then they're like, all right, well, you got to go to hospital, do this shit. So we'll take you up to reception. Took me up to reception. Because I'm going out, they had to strip search me, make sure I'm not taking stuff out. And they've just taken off all my clothes. I'm covered in bruises, cuts and shit like that. And one of the guards just went, oh, man, you haven't been having a good time, have you, Cuthbert? And I just started fucking crying, man. I just lost my shit. Still, they're like, do you want to talk about it? Do you want to say anything? I was like, no, I'm keeping my mouth shut. And then took me to hospital, come back, hit me up again. Yeah, do you want to say anything? And I was like, nah. And I just said, I just don't want to go back in that cell. And they said, fair enough. And then they took me to solitary confinement again. And I did my last 2 weeks there. So I did 6 months all up, which is not a long time, but I was, went to 2 different jails and had a real hard time in jail, I guess you could say. Yeah.
Bro, bro, that's brutal, eh? Like, fuck, I feel for you, eh? That's fucking, yeah. Like, bro, fuck. I don't even know what to say. To be honest. Like, that's fucking, like, I'm upset at that, bro. Like, that's fucked up, bro, that had happened to you, you know what I mean? Like,
the craziest thing, man, is I went back for another 6 months the next year. And at that point, I wasn't on the fucking news. I was up here in Cairns, the prison up here, actually, and they were like, look, Cuthbert, you got no dramas with anyone, no issues. So they just put me in the main. They're like, mate, you'll be sweet. Big no-no down south, obviously, to go from the fucking boneyard to the main, but up in Queensland, it's a little bit different. They just went, look, you got no dramas. No one knows who you are. Keep your head down, keep your mouth shut, and you'll be all right. And, I remember sitting at a table with these guys that, become my mates, become good mates. My brothers, really, now. And, I remember telling them, and they were just like, oh, fuck, man. We would have got those grubs. And I was like, here I was thinking I was in protection because I needed to be protected from, the general population. And then here I am, I end up in general population thinking, man, you should never have been in a cell with that grub. That grub shouldn't be walking around. He shouldn't be going around doing that shit to people. And they had my back. And it was just a spin out because I was like, I even think now, man, I think there was more grubs. I mean, because being in protection, man, they were all fucking pedophiles, rapists. Like, you got some real bad grubs in there.
Yeah.
And just spins me out because I think, there's
how
just some bad.
How are they protected, eh? Yeah.
Yeah. And
what he's
and
done to
guards
his
do.
child, like,
man, he's so he got sentenced to 10 years for that. They downgraded it to manslaughter because he pleaded guilty. And so I saw him in 2016. He'd already done a couple of years at that point on remand. He got sentenced a couple of years later. It's I got out and Googled him and that, and it come up and when he got sentenced and 10 years. And mate, I think that ended up last year. So even if he's done his full time, I mean, he could be walking around unless he got slapped with anything else. And just a bad guy, man. I struggle with this a bit too, and I feel like a hypocrite sometimes because I'm always banging on about how, I'm anti-prison and anti-youth detention, and I don't think that that's a place for people, and I don't want to see the kids that I work with ending up in youth detention and stuff. But like, I have met a couple people, and obviously this guy's one, and I think fuck, man, I don't know if he deserves to be anywhere else but jail.
Yeah,
You know, and
100%.
I
Yeah,
hate to say that, but unfortunately, like you would know, like you've done
yeah,
jail. There's some fucking hectic guys that
yeah,
unfortunately fucking deserve to be there, man.
yeah, 100%. Yeah. And then there's some that
But they
like
should be.
when you just said 10 years, like my mate got over 20 years for armed robberies, and this guy's got 10 years in his walk. Like, what the fuck?
It's ridiculous. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then
You know,
like
there
the
was
things that
mitigating
happen in there
factors.
too. Sorry,
What's that?
like the things that happen in there too, like how you said the screws kept setting you up. You
Yeah,
know, like people
yeah,
don't understand that, and they think that fucking it's
yeah,
just all fucking.
yeah,
You know, like the screws are the good
yeah,
guys and they're just the bad guys.
yeah.
But it just doesn't
You
work
know,
like that. It's all intermingled. Like,
yeah.
yeah,
And that was like that's an example of the screws. So all these allegations, right? I didn't get charged with any of it. You know, we had housemates at the time. The police spoke to them. The housemate said, "What are you talking about? She hasn't been trapped downstairs." You know, like it's all
yeah,
bullshit, really. So I didn't get charged, and I think that was probably one of the bad things. I think because then I had all these screws up there in prison, thinking, "Hey, this guy's getting away with all this stuff." Like that's what they're
yeah,
thinking, and they're thinking he's not getting charged. You know, we need to take things into our own hands and we need to dish out punishment to this guy. And that's the shit thing about, you know, a lot of screws is that they do think that they're the judge, jury, and executioner, and it's like, mate, your punishment is that you're in fucking prison and you're not out there walking the streets. Like
yeah,
the shit that happened to me, I mean, it's incredible, that I got through it. I mean, I got to tell you, I was a mess for a few years, man.
yeah,
I didn't feel like I could walk down the street again. I thought my life was over. I tried taking my own life a couple of times when I got out. I didn't want to live with that shit. Um, so incredible that I'm still here, and just even incredible that I didn't become. You know, I could have went down that path as well, where
yeah.
after all of that, I could have toughened up, hardened up, become more violent, full of hate, angry, straight
Against the
back in
world,
there,
yeah,
you know. Um, and I didn't. And I can see where guys go down that path. But yeah, I don't know. People ask me sometimes, they're like, you know, how are you here doing what you do? And I really
it is,
don't
bro.
know.
It's an absolute credit to you, bro, because that's like after what you've been through in life, like even just, bro, even if I halved your life, like I haven't been through them experiences from your youth or from your adulthood, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then yeah, and then fuck the amount of violence that I've dished out. You know what I mean? Like I've done 13 years, but yeah, bro, it's fucking like my hat goes off to you 100%, bro. And the shit you're doing now, not only you're doing good stuff for yourself and you know you've turned your own life around, but you're helping others to turn theirs around too. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's quite amazing, bro. And you got a law degree. You've done stuff
Yeah.
like you've spoken to Parliament and stuff. Like
Yeah.
yeah,
Man, that's
so
a spin out
let's
as
yeah
well.
let's talk about some of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Man, that's
so
a spin out
let's
as
yeah
well.
let's talk about some of that good stuff you're doing now.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Man, so obviously just, you know, studying law, I started learning about how to engage with law reform, you know, how to, you know, there's certain ways you got to present things and write things. And I thought, hey, I don't have my degree yet, but maybe I can start using some of my lived experience, especially when it comes to the justice system, anything to do with corrective services. I can write and make submissions to Parliament that are looking at new legislation, new laws, and I started writing to them. And there's been a couple of times now where, you know, they've come back and said, hey, we actually, you know, want to talk to you and sit down. And I've gone to these parliamentary committees and inquiries, and I've sat down and I've got members of Parliament there asking me about my experiences. And the last one I just did was the Youth Justice Reform Committee. And as far as I know, I was the only former criminal or the former, um, you know, there's a lot of organisations there that were talking, you know, either they were Legal Aid or Queensland Law Society or homelessness organisations, all sorts, or youth justice, things like that. But I think I was the only one that actually said, hey, I was one of those kids that used to commit these crimes, went to detention. I want to make some suggestions about how maybe we can do things better, maybe give you guys some insights about what kids are thinking. And another incredible thing about speaking to them that time is I actually did it with a magistrate who actually sentenced me when I was 19 down in Blacktown, Pat O'Shane. So she was pretty well known for being lenient, especially on kids. She used to like to sentence people to, rehab, or actually she's the one that actually started in New South Wales the drug courts. She started it. She started all that stuff where instead of going and getting sentenced, you could go, hey, I've got this issue and deal with that first. Yeah. And just so happens she's actually from up here in Cairns. Like, it's prisons and being in and out of prisons that brought me up here. I basically got tipped up here. I got released here in 2018, and I thought, I want to restart my life, start fresh. Here's as good a place as any. I'm in tropical paradise. And she'd retired and moved back. And one day I was in court, and a friend of mine said, oh, this is Pat O'Shane. Have you met? And I said, well, actually, funny story. We have met before. And she was like looking at me like, oh, I don't remember. And I was like, yeah, look, before I had all these tattoos, I was one of the young people that you sentenced. Anyway, so she was like, oh, that's crazy. And then ABC and NITV were doing this huge documentary about her life. And so not long after that, I get a call and they're like, hey, we want to sit you and Pat down. We're filming this doco. We want you guys to talk about now you're getting your law degree. I was president of the Law Society at my uni, and they're like, what a great, A, just the two of you coming together, but B, you're the student, she's the mentor. And so we did that. And then, we started hanging out a lot more, and we started both engaging in this law reform together. And we were doing a lot of media and saying, hey, look, here I am, I'm the former criminal. We're an unlikely duo. She actually sentenced me. Really, there would have been a time when we would have looked at each other as the enemy. When you're a young crim and you're going to court, you think, fuck the judge, fuck the lawyers, all of that stuff. And then they're probably thinking the same thing about us. I'm locking this kid away. And so it's funny to have that full circle moment and get together. So she actually came with me to Parliament, and I took her. I invited her to come with me. And that was pretty cool to talk to them about youth justice reform. And then I graduated this year, and she came to my graduation as well. So even that, I'm pretty proud of that. I'm pretty proud that I got a law degree, but I'm also proud of where I've come from to now be working with a magistrate who sentenced me years ago. It's like it's a spin out, and I'm just focused on trying to change things for everyone really, but guys like us that have been in the criminal justice system, especially the kids. The kids are a big passion of mine. Youth crime here is out of control. A few months ago, I started just going out, walking the streets at night a couple of times a week, finding these kids, asking them what they're doing, feeding them, hearing their stories, building relationships with them. I go out now and they're like, hey, sir, they come up and give me hugs and stuff. And these are some of our worst, they're very disadvantaged and have gone through a lot of stuff, a lot of trauma, a lot of violence, a lot of abuse, but they're also some of the most criminalised kids. These are the same kids that I'm seeing in court every day, that are in stolen cars, that are breaking into people's houses, and they're running up to me, giving me a hug. And I'm now at that point where I've got a good relationship with them, and we've been taking them into some of the local businesses in the CBD and saying, oh, this is my friend here that, runs the 7-Eleven or the Night Owl. If you're thirsty, he's going to give you a free bottle of water. If you're hungry, he's going to give you a free sausage roll. He doesn't want you coming in, tipping the shelves over, running amok. All right. He's happy to look after you. And now we're building those relationships between the kids and the shop owners, So we're reducing crime. They're not smashing windows. They're not throwing
Yeah.
rocks at the guys. The guy's not running out with the baseball bat chasing them
Yeah.
up the street. So doing, I think, like really good work there. There are some kids that are really difficult. There's some when I think, geez, I don't know how I can reach this one. I
Yeah.
don't know how I can crack that shell, you know. And I remember being a kid, you know, when I was a kid, I didn't, some person come up trying to tell me what to do or like sit down with me, you know, I was like, fuck you. You
Yeah.
know, like
The
there was
fuck do you know,
nothing you
eh?
could say to me. There was
Yeah.
nothing you could say to me to make me think, oh, okay, I'm going to be good now. Like,
Yeah.
just wasn't going to happen. But I'm slowly seeing it with these kids just because I have been going out for so long. You know, they look forward to it. I do buy them food. You know, I don't get paid.
Yeah.
And people sometimes think, you know, like, what are you doing that for? And I was like, well, I was one of those kids. I know what it was like. I know what it was like being on the streets, sleeping on the streets, being homeless when I was younger, committing crime, going to prison. Like I've been there, done all of that.
Yeah.
So I know what they're going through. And I guess because I have turned my life around so much, the local member for Cairns, he's now a councillor. He pulled me aside a couple of years ago and he said, oh, have you ever thought about politics? And I just laughed. He said, yeah, like, have you ever thought about running for council? And I thought, A, I'm covered in tattoos. Like, I've got a criminal history. And he's like, yeah, that's good. We need some more like people with diversity, people with backgrounds, people that understand what's going on. And he's another person that sort of come along and believed in me. And so I started getting into politics as well. I ran for council, you know, and I ran a campaign that the media absolutely hammered me.
Yeah.
I had a current affair rock up, you know, the day before the election. I was on the news the fucking night before. You know, former criminal, you know, runs for council. Of course, weren't covering any of the good stuff that I was doing in the community.
Yeah.
But, you know, I had a crack, and I think I'll have another crack. And I think that's inspiring too for a lot of other people that, like, you know, like, look, a lot of people aren't into politics. It's boring. But that is where the decisions about us are made. And I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, well, maybe if I can get a seat at the table, then maybe I can open the door for somebody else. Maybe I can
Yeah.
change things for somebody else.
Yeah.
Maybe I can change some of these bullshit laws, because there's a lot of them that are bullshit. I mean, you yourself or anyone that follows me, you know, you've probably seen some of my content. Like, I'm always calling out legislation and things, how we can do it better. You know, different laws about different things and how they're stupid. You know, I think this week I was talking about how the parole system's fucked and how the community service system's fucked. You know, like, and I'm like saying, hey, I know what I'm talking about because I've been through those systems. Hate me because of it if you want to, but I'm someone that's been through it. I know what I'm talking about, and I can educate you guys because, you know, there's a lot of politicians, powers that be, that they've got no idea. And I'm also, I think, to a certain degree, putting a face to criminals. You know, like I'm sort of showing that, hey, we're not all bad.
Yeah.
They just want to treat everyone like a number and let's lock more people up. We're not locking up enough people. And I'm saying, well, hey, there's some actual genuine people that get locked up. Their dads, their brothers, sisters, mums, aunties. They're normal people. They're human beings. They fucked up. They've got addictions. They've made mistakes. They're not all that bad. They're capable of good. And there is a lot of guys now that have been through the criminal justice system that are doing amazing things.
Yeah.
And, you know, that's
And
a credit to
social
them.
media is big, like helping that. And
Yeah.
it gives us a voice now, that people that actually want to show people that you can make a difference and can change and do good in the world. Yeah.
Yep. And I think people are sick of, you know, the same old media. It's just negative all the time. You know, even social media for a long time, it was all just negative stuff, or, you know, it was all fake. It was all like, hey, look at my handbag and my car. And
Yeah.
now I think people are starting to go. I mean, really, I think like Russell and Spenion, I think they really kicked it off, like, you know,
Yeah.
telling their story. I mean, Spenion does it in such a way where he's just such a genuine person. Like, he just talks like he is who he is. He's from the hood.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, he hasn't changed
Yeah.
the way he speaks or anything. And then people are like, hey, I like that is genuine, and they're starting to appreciate it and think, hey, maybe, you know, these guys are doing something good in the world. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, awesome, bro. Well, that's awesome, bro. My hats off to you, and bro, the shit you've been through is fucking crazy, and you're really showing the youth, and you know, even other people, like the older people too, because it's not just the youth that can change their path. Like, you can change your
yeah,
path at any time, and um, getting into politics, especially in law, like, shows that there's no roof to that. You know, that you don't
it's
have to
yeah,
go and work at McDonald's, or you can
yeah,
get into anything.
yep,
You can still live your dreams, and that goes off to you, Shane. And so just thanks for coming on, bro. Your story is very inspirational, and yeah, thank you very much. Have a good one, bro.
man. Thanks for having me.
No worries, bro. Yeah, I'll cut it.
Thank you, everyone. Make sure to get your YouTuber shirt, drop supers down below to support the channel, as obviously 99% of my stuff does not get monetized. Share this with your friends, like it, comment, and thank you for your support. Much appreciated. Next time, yeah, I'm going to keep bringing you stories that people haven't heard and that people haven't been on podcasts. We've got some really interesting stuff coming up. So thanks everyone for tuning in and supporting the channel.